Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Yady. We are with James today. We are having a conversation about transgender issues and issues that he may have experienced at school or not. I'm hoping that we'll get into those kinds of things. But James, I'm just going to let you start. Tell us who you are. How old are you? Where do you live if you want to share? What do you do now?
Cool. So, my name is James. I'm 19 years old, and I'm currently at a university for a bachelor's in computer science.
I heard you're pretty savvy with the computers and really,
Yep. Well,
really
I
bright.
chose it. So,
Yeah, yeah. So, my question, the one that I want to start with is I want to hear about what your experience was like in K through 12.
yeah. So, I went to public school for elementary school, and at that point, I didn't really know anything about LGBTQ, or transgender itself, because I mean, even though I was growing up in the early 2000s, it still wasn't like brought to my attention really, and I was just a kid. I was just there to have fun and color.
Yeah.
uh, so elementary school wasn't really that big of a deal for me. It was pretty cool, pretty chill. And then into middle school, that's when I started hearing about LGBTQ, and I started like really questioning about stuff. During middle school in sixth, seventh grade, I started like coming out as bisexual, when I was still presenting as a female at the time,
Okay.
just because I did feel, attraction to both genders and all that. And then in eighth grade, I came out as like fully gay as as a female. I don't know. I don't know. I found that term to be more affirming for me.
Okay.
Um, and at that time, that's when I did start seeing like YouTube videos pop up as recommended to me for like transgender people. And I had always known that transgender people existed, but I
Mhm.
just didn't. I don't know. Something didn't connect to me being like, oh,
Right.
this is me.
Right.
But I did click on the videos for curiosity and just to, like learn more about the community itself. And when I heard like trans men talk about their experiences and stuff, I was like, that hits a little close to home, like a little
Yeah.
too close. So that's when I started clicking on more and more and more. And it's really easy to like, watch videos after videos after
Yeah.
videos. And the more I watched, the more I felt like somebody was going through the same thing. Somebody was like feeling the same exact things as me. And it was really weird because they're such specific things that you
Really.
can't mistake for something. Like, I don't know. I guess like stuff like, oh, like I don't feel comfortable using the men's or women's restroom. I feel like that's something that, like cisgender people or people who are born and represent as what they were born. Um, I feel like that's something that they don't really think about. They're like, oh, like I'll go to the women's bathroom because I'm a woman, and stuff like that. For
Yeah.
me, it was always like, I don't feel comfortable in either one, and stuff like that.
Interesting.
So the more that I heard about other people's experiences, the more I connected it to my own. And that was like, it was really key for me. So transitioning from eighth grade to ninth grade, that's when I started meeting more people, because I had all my middle school friends had gone to different high schools, and I had chosen to go to a early college academy. So
Mm.
everyone there was big nerds and all that, like everyone there was like a part of something academic, and that was the extracurriculars, because my high school didn't have like sports. Everything
Mm.
was academics.
Got
And
it.
I had actually gone to the community college because our high school was literally built next to it, so we could go to both classes.
Oh, neat.
And by the time I graduated with my associates in liberal arts as well as my high school diploma.
That's
So
so
I
cool.
was surrounded by a bunch of people who were nerdy and stuff like that, and it's really cool. And each class was only like 125 students, and I live in Texas, so every like public school here, the big ones, they're like 3,000, 4,000 students.
Yeah.
So to have like such a small class was really special to me. um but that's around like freshman year and sophomore year. That's when you start making your little cliques, you start making your little groups and stuff.
Right.
I had a group that was basically all LGBTQ, except for some people, which is fine. I mean, that wasn't our main focus. Our main focus was
Right.
having fun in high school
You
together and
guys just
stuff.
connected that way.
Yeah, yeah, it is really a thing, is that like, whether you're trans or bisexual or pansexual, like it's something that you can bond over, because it's something that's like going on still as like a, not as an issue, but as a topic all the time.
Mhm.
And stuff. So it's really nice to find people and meet people who were experiencing the same things, but also had like, maybe the same opinions on it and stuff like
Got it.
that. So during sophomore year, that's when I had started telling some of my closer friends. I was like, hey, so I've been like thinking about what if I, change my pronouns to like he, him, and stuff like that. Like, I don't feel like a woman. And they're like, that's fine. It was so like, they're like,
Like
sure.
nonchalant.
Yeah, it was like nonchalant. They're like, oh, so you're trans. And I was like, I guess so. And like, that was the first time that I said it. I was like, I'm trans. Like, yeah, and it felt right. It clicked,
Felt right.
it's like, it felt like I was saying something finally about myself that I could like believe in, like drill in, like this is me, this is who I am,
That's
and
awesome.
stuff like that. But yeah, so around like sophomore, junior year, that's when I started using he, him pronouns. And I had started like, starting deciding what name to use and stuff like that.
Okay.
I had gone through a multitude of names.
Really?
Yeah, choosing a name for me was like really weird, and not well, it was hard because
Mhm.
I felt like once I changed it, I couldn't change it ever again.
Got it.
Because I was just like, I'm gonna get people used to saying this, and then what if I change my mind again? I'm gonna feel terrible. I'm gonna feel like a bad person because they're gonna be like,
Right.
just make up your mind already. But that's
Yeah.
not at all what anyone was thinking. They
Yeah.
were just there to support.
Oh,
They were
that's
just there to
awesome.
like, you got it, man. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think there was only one other transgender student at my school, and he was a junior at the time that I was a freshman.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't talk to him. I didn't even know
No.
who he was. I didn't even know who he was till like sophomore year. And I was like, oh, really? Like, I didn't know. And
Yeah.
stuff like that. And we actually talked probably about like 2 years ago.
Really.
Yeah, and we connected on a lot of things, but I wish I had talked to him sooner. I really do.
Really?
But
Yeah. Why?
yeah,
Why
so
do you
like,
why do you wish you would have talked to him sooner?
maybe because we went to the same high school,
Right.
and also because I didn't really know how to navigate the whole name changing thing. I'm like, did you ever feel like you were like stuck with one name and that's it? Like, you felt like,
Mhm.
did you ever feel like you could never change it? Because that's
Yeah.
what I'm going through, and stuff like that. Um, but no, so I went through a bunch of names. I had mostly chosen names. uh I chose names off of a baby generator because I feel like that's like,
Yeah.
the most well-known route as a trans
Right.
person to go through is like, okay, let me see what
Yeah, it's kind of
what
like
comes up.
rebirth, though, if you think
Yeah,
about it,
yeah, for
right?
sure.
Got
So I
it.
was just like, let's see what pops up and see if anything clicks. And at the time, even though I was saying like, I'm a trans man, I would still felt like a little bit disconnected from men and disconnected from women. So I was a little bit like non-binary.
Got it.
So I didn't really connect with either. So I was looking for a more androgynous name. And I went through a couple, but like androgyny just didn't feel like it was me.
Got it.
So it took probably a solid like 2 years till I chosen James, which happens to be my brother's middle name.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you know that at the time?
I did. I did.
Okay.
And I was kind of scared because I tried it out once at work.
Uh-huh.
Work was also a really big safe place for me
Oh,
because
that's
everyone
wonderful.
there was just really welcoming, and they're like, "Oh, we're so excited for you. Like, yes, let's do it,"
Yeah. And it's so
and stuff like
crazy.
that.
And maybe it's my own misconception of Texas, but you're not in a big city, are you?
I'm right outside
Okay.
I'm right outside San Antonio, so pretty
Okay.
big.
Okay. So it's such a misconception that you are not going to be encouraged to be yourself in Texas, but I'm glad to hear that it's been that way,
Yeah.
including at work.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to be near such a big city that is
Yeah.
more tends to be more welcoming to like, trans folk and all that.
Yeah.
So, and I was very nervous about getting a job. I think that's another thing that a lot of people don't really
Mm,
talk about. It's like
yeah.
when you're transitioning, and especially when I started out like really young. As soon as I turned 16, I started applying for jobs,
Yeah.
because I wanted a driver's license. I wanted the freedom,
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And that was really nerve-wracking because I was like, what do I introduce myself as? Like, what do I put on the paper when I'm applying? Do I put my legal name? Do I put this? I had so many questions that like couldn't be answered really. So I had to
Right.
kind of navigate my own way around that. And I think it's really important for people to touch up on that because these are such specific things that I think like even us trans people miss when we're trying to give
Right.
advice
Right.
to other people. It's like, oh yeah, like put your legal name, yes, but also like encourage them, like this is what you want to go by, like you're just
Right.
putting that for documentation, that's it, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it was very nice to have a workplace. And I had worked at I worked for Panera, and I had worked there for like a year before I started like transitioning.
Got it.
And so that's when I had told them, I was like, oh, I want to change it to this. They're like, great.
That's
Like,
so wonderful.
let's get you a new name tag. I'm like, great.
That must have
Yeah.
felt really good.
That was
Yeah.
I didn't have a name tag before, but it was really nice to have like that. I think the workplace name tag was the first thing that I had seen, the name that I had chosen printed on something. And that was just so cool. Like
Yeah,
I was just like, wow, like I'm
that's
doing it. I'm doing
me.
it, like
Yeah,
I never thought I would get to this point.
yeah.
But yeah, so that was a really special moment actually.
Oh, I'm sure it was. So it sounds to me like you did feel like you belonged, like you never felt. But I have to ask you, did you feel the same from the kids at school as well as the adults? Or did you feel differently?
Um, I'd say I don't know, I felt different for sure.
Yeah.
Because at the time, like, I'm not gonna say high school was rough for me because I don't think it was, but I definitely after like I think like sophomore year, because I got moved to online classes in the middle of junior year. That's when COVID started for
Got it.
me. Um, so right before junior year started, I had kind of shifted from that friend group that did support me. They still supported me, but they started becoming like not to sound mean, like too immature for me because I don't know. I was
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I
But you
think
were on
it's
a different path.
yeah, I was on a different path, and so we parted ways and stuff. So I became a little bit of a loner, which like I mean I was fine with because I'm a bit of an introvert.
Yeah.
But what's it called? But during that time, like yes, I did feel like outside the box because I was just like, okay, I'm not talking to these people as much as I used to. So now like who am I and stuff like that. And it was very weird because especially when we had substitutes, that
Yeah.
was a rough thing to go through just because they would do roll call and they call my legal name and I'd be like, that's me. But I didn't bother correcting them at the time because one, I was freshly coming out. So I did not have the confidence to change
Right,
people
right.
or to correct people. And then also like I just didn't see the point in it because they were subbing for like one day.
Mhm, mhm.
Um and even at that time, even though I had come out to like my closest friends and stuff, not everybody in my class had known. So they'd be like who's James? Like who's that? I'm like, that's me. But
Yeah.
stuff like that was very weird and it made me feel like a little bit of alone. Um,
Yeah.
because I felt like I was the only one there. And like
Right.
for a little bit I was until like more people started like, doing their own like self-exploring and stuff like
Right.
that. One of my friends that I had graduated with, he didn't come out to trans till like we crossed the stage.
Oh,
We actually work together now.
do you?
But
Yeah.
yeah. But he's very cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm like, I'm glad to have been someone there to like, I guess not lead by example, but have somebody like
Yeah.
representing something,
Yeah.
So that was really nice. So even though I did feel out of place sometimes, I still had that going for me. And I had my work friends and stuff. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
it helped a lot, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity because not everybody has that kind of
True.
support system,
Yeah.
and stuff. So that's very
So,
nice.
so let me ask this. It in the system at school, you still had your legal name. And had you wanted to change it, do you think you could have, or did you never even question the idea of like perhaps changing everything in the system to the name that you chose to James?
Yeah. So at the time, let's say, I think in sophomore, junior year when I was like freshly coming out and stuff like that, I hadn't told my family at all.
Mm,
My
okay.
family isn't like conservative or anything like
Yeah,
that, or
yeah.
like it or not conservative, but they're not against it at all.
Got it.
I don't know. I never felt like I could tell them.
Hmm.
And that was like a multitude of like little things that had happened
Right.
that made me feel like I couldn't. We can get to that later. But so I hadn't told my family yet. So I didn't really see how I could change stuff in the system without them knowing, especially as a
Got it.
minor. I definitely told my teachers, or like if I was too scared to, my friends would. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, he goes by James now, like he him."
Got it.
We're like,
Got it.
"Cool, great," and stuff like that. And that was really awesome. So the teachers were very like welcoming with that, and like even the counselor that I had spoken to, she was just like, "I don't have to refer to you as this like when we're alone." Like with your parents, if you want me to say your legal name because you don't want them to know yet, that's fine. Like I will do that for you.
That's
But like
awesome.
when we're alone and stuff, like I'll call you by what you want. And I really appreciated that. That was really
Yeah.
nice. So
Yeah.
I never really thought about changing it just because I hadn't come out to them.
Right,
I
right.
actually still haven't changed my name legally. I
Mhm.
have come
Yeah.
out to my family.
Okay.
I've been out for a while, and stuff like that. And it's been like a process. It really has been a process, but
Yes,
they're
yes.
so like welcoming now and stuff like that. And it is a process. Like, just trust the process. Especially with parents that like you might be unsure about,
Mhm.
just do it. Like, if you feel safe to,
Right, right.
and or like I came out to my brother first because
Mm,
I was closer to my brother,
yeah.
and
Is
I
he older or
knew
younger than you?
he's older than me. I'm the
Okay.
baby in the
Oh,
family, so
are
I'm the
you? Okay.
youngest. I am. So I'd
Gotcha.
come out to my brother. He's the middle child.
Got it.
And he was just like, okay, like, he had a little bit more of like beliefs of like, I don't know if that's real or not yet, because he
Mhm,
wasn't exposed to that ever,
mhm.
which is fine. So I was just like, I mean, I'm just telling you to tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
And then later on down the road, I told my sister, and she was just like, okay, just don't make any permanent changes yet unless that's for sure what you want.
Mm,
Excuse me. And that's, I mean, like, that was kind of expected. That's okay. She's very like
yeah.
smart and stuff. She's the oldest. And then, as things started getting more serious around like junior year and like sophomore or senior year, when I was like, I really want to start like hormone therapy. Like, I need
Got it.
this. Like, I need this because I don't feel like myself.
Got
Like,
it.
yes, I'm coming out to more and more people. Yes, I'm feeling a little bit more affirmed, but I'm still like insecure about who I am. I still experience, gender dysphoria a lot,
Got it.
and stuff like that. So the closer I got, the more my sister and my brother were like, okay, yeah, this is real. Like, what can we do to support you? And that was really nice. And
Yeah.
eventually I did come out to my parents, and they're like, my dad didn't quite understand. He's a little bit more of a traditional man. So he was
Yeah.
just like, what's that? Like, what do you
Yeah.
mean? And my mom, she helped a lot with that. She helped like explain it to him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's been like probably 3 years since I've come out to them.
Okay.
And so now, I mean, now we're all chill and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now they've started like becoming more accustomed to he him and stuff like that. It, like I said, it's a process. So even though I have been out for 3 years, they haven't started using he him to like up until like half a year ago.
Right, right.
And like, actually, last week was the first time my mom called me her son.
Oh,
It's like these little baby steps that you have to be patient for.
right.
And especially me, I'm a big family person. Like, I
Gotcha.
grew up like with that connection with everybody, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's not for me to just be like, oh, you don't immediately accept this, like, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm here to help you understand, and I'm here to like, help, like, I don't know, just build this relationship with you and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's been really nice, and they're becoming like more and more accustomed, which I'm just like, I'm totally stoked about.
Yeah, yeah. And then you're right. I mean, it is a process and, there's a little bit of a loss, I'm sure, for them, but there's also gaining. So just kind of moving through that must have been, not difficult, but perhaps just, I'm sure they worry about you quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, there
Yeah.
was definitely like, before I started testosterone, my mom was like, I want you to go see like a therapist before you do this, and stuff
Yeah.
like that, just to make sure you're in the right mental space.
Oh, that's awesome.
I ended up not listening to her. I don't know. I just I knew it was something that I needed.
Yeah.
I needed therapy too.
Yeah.
But it was something that like I knew that I needed and stuff like that.
Right,
So
right.
I did start without a therapist.
Yeah.
Which, I don't regret. I don't.
Right.
But like, I appreciate her, and I'm so grateful to have a mom who's even willing to like look out for me.
Yes,
Because like
definitely.
I said, not everybody has that privilege. So, it's very nice to have that. And even if you don't, like, there's so many communities online or like even in person, like,
Yeah.
that are willing to not be that parent for you, but to be the role model for you,
Right.
and just they care about you. So
Yeah.
that's very nice.
Do you have any advice for children who are questioning themselves, don't feel like themselves in their own skin? I mean, I can tell you that the girl that I interviewed, it was interesting because she was transitioning as well during COVID, which made it easier because it was at home and if you're in school, you don't have to turn your computer on. But it was interesting to me that she didn't have any fears coming in. And I don't know if it was because it was in California that she was coming back to school.
Mhm.
We were able to change everything in the system and it was an easy kind of coming back to school kind of thing. But I'm sure that there are things that she has not anticipated that she will fear when she gets there. So do you see anything that would be helpful to hear to tell her if you were talking to her right now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, whether you grow up in like a very like welcoming family, or a family that maybe not be so welcoming and stuff, like I said, there's so many communities that I think are important to reach out to. Whether you're like 100% fearless, which, like kudos to her, that's great, and I
Yeah,
think part of that is also because she's so young and like
true.
innocent. So she's in like California. I mean,
Yes, I think
it's
that makes a
very, it's,
difference.
yeah, I think that makes a big difference. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, y'all don't have laws that are constantly trying to like basically get rid of you, like
yeah.
here in Texas, which is very scary. That's a whole nother
I know.
subject.
I was gonna ask you about that too.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so definitely like communities are so important. And when you do get to those scary bits where you're like, do I want to start medically transitioning, or like, is it okay if I don't, and stuff like that? There's a very well known website called trevorspace.org.
Okay.
um and that is genuinely probably the best LGBTQ plus like space in the world.
Yeah.
Mostly because they offer two main things, which is the hotline,
Okay.
which I can give you the number and all that later, but the hotline is for any person that identifies as anything, whether you're bisexual or trans or non-binary, whatever. You can call them, or for a lot of people who aren't too scared to call people, you can actually text them too,
Oh,
and
wow,
they're
that's
there
cool.
for you. Like, and it's not like hotline where you only call when you feel like you're in danger. Of course, do that, but also like, call the authorities if you need. But they're there for things that just make you feel bad about yourself,
Got
and
it.
they're there to support you and like hold your hand through that. If you don't have
Yeah.
someone to do that, they are amazing. They're so amazing.
Oh, that's cool to
And
hear.
yeah, and even if you don't feel like you need like a hotline, which is fine, um, even if you just want to connect with people who might be going through the same experiences as you, or for me, for example, when I was like watching those YouTube videos in middle school, I had heard about Trevor Space, so I had actually logged on, I created an account. um
Okay.
and this is youth, so they put you in categories based on of your age. So if you are like 12 or 13, they'll put you in with those 13-year-olds, so you're not just
Okay.
with anybody. um and there's like little like channels and stuff that you can click on, like, oh, this is like the transgender male channel, or this is the transgender female channel, or how do I choose my name channel, and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
And they're just like, they're so specific, but they're so helpful for people. And the people there are just amazing, both the workers and like the active community members. They're
yeah,
so welcoming and so nice. Like when I was going through trying to choose my name and stuff, I texted the channel once. I was like,
yeah.
hey, like I haven't chosen a name yet, but I'm thinking about like Connor or something, and stuff like that. They're like, oh, that suits you so well, like that. They're very like there for
Oh,
you.
very encouraging.
Very encouraging. And
That's
it's
so
like,
great.
it's nice to meet people, like even if it's not face to face, it's nice to know that there are people out there everywhere across
Yeah,
the world that are just like you. And it's, I think that is the most important thing. Is like, when you do get to the scary bits,
yeah,
having someone there who might understand a little bit of what you're going through makes all the difference. It really does. So I think for like the advice I can give to any young trans person is, confide in the people you trust, and
okay.
and go to trevorspace.org.
I love
They're
it. I
just so
love
they're
it.
so nice.
Yeah. What about for the adults around them? What can we as adults do? Like even at school, I mean, I think parents, it's a whole different thing. We
Yeah.
talked about the process, but I know that at school sometimes it can be very scary place. I mean, I was looking at the data and the suicide rate for trans kids is so, so high. So
Yeah.
what could I do as a school counselor to make sure that I am providing that safe space for somebody who's considering or questioning or just really knows that they're not who they're presenting on the outside?
Right. Yeah. Honestly, like, I mean, I think the biggest reason the suicide rates are so high is because they don't feel like there's anybody out there for them,
Got it.
and that's where like counselors, y'all come into play so much.
Mhm.
And I wish more students utilized it. It's really hard. Like, and I'm thinking back to like my middle school
Yeah,
mindset where, I didn't want to talk to the counselor. Like, I
right.
didn't want to be that kid that went to the counselor and stuff like
Got it.
that. So it was very like I don't know, it was a little bit of like a school stereotype thing, I guess, that it was like, I don't need help. I don't want to
Right.
admit that I need help,
Right.
because it's just like, oh, if I'm going to the counselor, that means I'm like on like my wits end. Like, no,
Yeah.
that just means you're reaching out for like any type of help
Right.
or any type of support, really. But I think as like teachers and counselors and stuff, I think just extending that hand is as much as you can, and constantly showing support, um my counselor was great, but I do wish sometimes, like, if counselors or just the school in general had more, like, I guess, events
Mm,
or just like weeks where we celebrated, everybody,
got it.
like different, like, I don't know, pride, everything. Like,
Yeah.
it's like this doesn't just really apply to trans people. This applies to like any like marginalized group, really. Is
True.
like, um, more representation, I feel like, is what we need. And that's also really hard to say in Texas, where they're literally making laws to like ban Black history and LGBTQ books, like,
Right.
which is, it's terrible. It really is.
Yeah.
But I think it's just important for teachers to say, like, hey, I support you. And if this is what you want to go by, what can I do to like help
Yeah.
you and stuff like that? Like, do you need me to email your teachers for you? Like, this is what you need. Because I think
Yeah.
that was also a big thing. Like, because students who do come out as trans and stuff like that, it's such like a scary place. And it's not, because even if you do come out as trans, you're not coming out with full confidence. You're coming out slowly, slowly, slowly.
Right.
So
Right.
at the beginning, it's important to have someone, like, whenever you decide, like, whatever pronouns fit you best, or if you
Yeah.
decide to go by a different name, let me know so I can share that with other people, like, with your consent.
Right.
um and change as much as you can, really. Or even if they need help talking to their parents about it,
Right.
of course, with like permission and all that, because some parents aren't as welcoming with it. But I think with some
True.
parents, like, I mean, just being open-minded, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Is, just reach out, throw some
Yeah.
throw some stuff, like some like, not fundraisers, but like events that show real representation of people that do exist, and not just, forget that we don't, like, that we have a history, because we do. It's such a
Right.
long, long history. Like, trans people
True.
are not new. It's just
Exactly.
we're in a place in society where we feel like we can finally come out,
True.
and not
True.
even fully sometimes, like,
Yeah.
but we're in a place that I feel like we're we're slowly getting there, slowly
Yeah.
but surely. And, I think, yeah, like I said, representation and open-mindedness and just reaching a hand out is super important.
I love it. Absolutely. But let's talk about those laws there. What do you think about that? What do you think? How do you think it would have affected you if you were just now going through that process of finding or being who you really are?
So the laws here, um, every day, if I ever log on to social media or I'm watching the news with my mom, it makes me upset, not like angry, but it makes me sad to think
Yeah,
that I feel like we're backtracking. I feel like we've
true.
made it to this point and somebody just like kicked us off.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it's really crushing, because we've worked hard to be able to be ourselves and to have a mass majority, at least in Texas, to be like uncomfortable with people being happy about who they are. That
right.
makes me sick to my stomach, really. Um, so the laws also scare me for children. Like,
Yeah,
I think if these laws were getting passed when I was still like a minor, I'd be terrified.
yeah,
Even if I wasn't thinking about starting hormones just yet, because I wasn't really until like, mid high school. Um, Even if I wanted to, I would not have the opportunity to. Um, and even if I didn't, those laws being able to get passed so easily,
right,
like, it scares me, because they're not gonna stop there. That's the thing. Is like,
right.
if people think they're just gonna stop there, they're not. They're uncomfortable with our entire existence. So if they can get stuff passed, they will try. And
Yeah,
that's what's the bad thing about it, is that who cares if you're like, I mean, like, not who cares, but even if you're not thinking about starting hormones, even if you
right,
haven't even come out to your family and stuff, it's scary to grow up in a place where most people in your state don't like you.
right,
Like, just for being who you are. And it's like, we're not any different. We're
right.
not. We're walking a harder path of life,
Absolutely.
in its own right. Um, like we're not choosing this just for fun.
Mhm.
We're not choosing to go through the pain just for fun.
Right.
It's like this is something that we've thought about for a long time, or even if you haven't, even if you are that fifth grader who feels a different way, that's fine. And that's not scary. And to think some people are I don't think people are scared of us. I don't think people are scared of us. I think like the word transphobic and homophobic, phobic being scared of, like, I don't think those words are accurately describing. They just don't want change. They don't
Right.
want to be uncomfortable. But if we're going to start making laws to ban things that make us uncomfortable, I got a whole list. We
I
can't
love it.
just we can't
Yes.
just be throwing stuff out there because those laws are what are putting kids in danger. Those
Yes.
laws are what causing kids to want to feel like or want make kids feel like the only choice they have is to leave this planet.
Yeah,
And that's terrible. That's no kid should ever feel like that.
absolutely not. I agree
I mean,
completely.
any person shouldn't feel like that, but to have such a young child feel like that and like you're voting for it, you're really causing that. How can you feel
Yeah,
good about yourself?
absolutely. Does that make you want to leave the state?
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. Kind of. I mean, aside from like where my career will take off, like based on my own personal views and my own experience here in Texas, I love Texas. I'm a Texas boy. I
Yeah.
I do love Texas, but the not the people here. Well, the people here, the votes
Yeah.
here, the beliefs of the majority, does make me like, you know, resent the state because I'm
Yeah.
like, why are we thinking like this? I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in a place where y'all are killing children because you're uncomfortable.
Right.
Like I don't know. And but part of me wants to stay for those
To
people
fight it.
to fight it
Yeah.
because if I'm a resident here, I can vote here, you
True.
know, and I can fight those things. And I mean, we're progressing. We're progressing. I mean, we saw it in the last presidential election. We were so close to turning blue.
Yes,
And I'm not saying
definitely.
blue is right. You can hold your own views and
Right.
whatever,
Right.
but I'm saying we are so close to being such a welcoming state. And I know we can. Texas is
Yeah.
such a humbling place. Like everyone here is family.
Yeah.
And I wish like, everyone here was family. I wish
Yeah.
everybody believed that, we have like the slogan, like y'all means all, like,
Yeah.
yes, it does. Like, I wish everybody believed that. And part of me really wants to stay here to fight that because it's just, I don't want to leave this state and have it get worse. Um, because not that I'll, not that I should feel responsible for it because, it's my own life, but
Definitely.
I might feel responsible for it. And like, if I have the opportunity to help at least like one person, I will like,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it's very much like something that goes across my mind every once in a while when I'm thinking about what I want to do after I graduate.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, part of me just want to stay and fight.
Makes sense. So everybody who's opposing trans rights always cites the bathroom and the sports issue. It's always those two things, correct?
Yes.
What do you think about that? Like, why do you think there's such a focus on either one of those? Like,
you know, I'll start with the bathrooms.
let's do
Um,
it.
mostly because I have more experience with bathrooms than I do with sports. But
Got it.
with bathrooms, I don't really see where the opposing belief comes from. All I see is like, oh, we don't want transgenders in our bathroom. And I'm
Got
like,
it.
great. I don't know where that comes from. Like, why? Like,
Yeah.
I've tried to search it. I'm like, I cannot figure out why people are saying this. The only logical reason I can come up with is like, oh, well, maybe if you're having a trans woman in the woman's bathroom, well, that means they have a penis, which means they can do like other things to women. And I'm like, I guess, but that happens like everywhere, no matter
True.
what. Like, there are people who sexually assault or just assault in general other people in the opposite gender bathroom,
Mhm.
like regardless if they're trans or not.
Right.
And I'm gonna say most trans people aren't there to assault you. Most trans people are just trying to pee, and like most trans people are just trying to get their business like anyone else. Like, do your
Right.
business,
Correct.
get out. The bathroom place is like, I mean, of course, like aside from high school and all that, the bathroom place isn't a place to like mingle and all that. A bathroom
I
place
hope
is
not,
like
right?
you're
At
going.
least.
Yeah, I hope not. Your bathroom place is you're going there to do your business and get out.
Exactly.
So for people to believe that like trans people don't belong in there, or like that they shouldn't be able to choose like which bathroom they go in, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Because I mean, like for me, if I were to walk into the women's restroom, like I think people would freak out. And I've done it before at my work because I was like cleaning and I thought no one was in there because I knocked, but like someone
Yeah.
was in there and like she freaked out and I was like, I'm sorry. Like I'm just trying to do my job. Like I
Yeah.
thought no one was in here, no one said anything. And I'm just like, y'all want me to go into the women's bathroom because like I was born as a female. Like
Right.
that doesn't
Right.
make any sense.
Right.
And like they're like, oh well, you're kind of an exception. I'm like, no, I'm not. Like that's
Mhm.
it shouldn't be based off of like how we look. I can
On the
get where
outside.
that
Yeah.
comes from. I understand. I grew up in Texas. I
Yeah.
grew up with a little bit of traditional views. I grew up like, with that. So I understand where the uncomfortableness comes from,
Mhm.
but we are not there to do anything else other than do our business.
Got it.
Um, and we're just trying to be comfortable doing that. And like
Right.
even for me, even though I am even though I represent as a trans man, I still don't feel comfortable in the men's bathroom. Like I mean, I use it because that's where I feel like I would pass the most.
Got it.
But I still don't feel comfortable in there. And so when there is an all gender restroom available, like praise Jesus, like I'm praying,
Yes.
like thank
Yeah.
you,
That's
thank
your
you.
jam.
Yeah, thank you. Like, that's like the best thing ever. And there's like mixed beliefs about like what an all gender restroom should be. Whether it should be like stalls like a regular restroom or it should be one stall with like a door lock and stuff like that. I don't care. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
Just give me the all gender restroom.
Gotcha.
And I had a recently during spring break, I had traveled for vacation. And so I had 2 flights layovers. And at each airport that I went to, they had an all gender restroom. And I really appreciated that because, like, I mean, they don't got that in Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, they have it in Austin. But what's it called? Like that was just so nice because I mean, you got to pee after a long flight.
Yeah.
And like for me to be able to just walk into a restroom, feel comfortable in there just to do my business, like that's stuff that I shouldn't be worrying about, but trans
Agree.
people do.
Definitely.
Trans people constantly worry about that. And I feel like that's also another thing that doesn't really get brought into light is like for lack of better terms, our bladders are suffering.
Yeah.
Because I remember before I had started testosterone and binding, I still looked like a female.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't use the men's restroom, but I didn't feel so comfortable. I did not feel comfortable at all in the women's restroom. Like
Got it.
I just like I don't know.
It
I
felt
just couldn't
weird.
do
It
it.
felt,
I just couldn't do it. So I would hold my pee for
oh my
hours
gosh,
until I got
James.
home, and it was really painful. It was
Yeah.
painful, and that's something that a lot of trans people go through. That like doesn't get talked about, but it is
Not at
like
all.
it
Yeah.
is like we will not use the restroom for our own pain just because we don't want to make anybody uncomfortable.
Right. Right.
So
That's so
like I
crazy.
don't think people take into account how much we do for other people.
Right.
Stuff that we don't
Exactly.
have to do, stuff that we shouldn't be worrying about.
Definitely.
And that's
That is
it makes me
crazy.
like heated, but
Yeah, no, it would too. I would be upset about that too. And just what you just said now, I don't think you're right. I personally, I have to be honest, I didn't think about it. It's like, you're doing that for me
yeah.
so that I don't feel weird about you walking into the bathroom, but you're doing that for me. It's not the other way around. And that's
Yeah.
just so crazy 'cause I've never, not that I'm a selfish person, but I had never thought about it that way. So I appreciate you for saying that.
Yeah, and like I mean most people don't. Like we don't blame
Yeah.
you for it. Like that's something that people don't think about.
Right.
Like I mean, and it's stuff that once you experience it, but yeah, it's definitely something that is very common, I think, within trans people. And it's like, we're doing it for the benefit of others, which we don't have to, but
You shouldn't have to
we're
know.
doing it for that, but also to protect ourselves. Because,
Absolutely.
like, if we walk into the wrong bathroom, who knows what's going to happen? And especially that, in Texas or any state that is more, excuse me, against LGBTQ, it's very scary. It's a very scary
Yeah,
thing.
it is a scary thing.
Yeah. And
That's
then
sports thing.
yeah, the sports thing. So I'm like I said, I'm more of an introvert. I'm more of
I
an
love it.
inside on my
Yeah.
computer kind of guy.
Yeah.
But sports is something that I definitely like. I mean, I have an opinion about, of course. And that was a big thing, especially because I love watching the Olympics. I love watching the Olympics with my mom. Like the Winter Olympics, let me paraphrase. I love watching the Winter Olympics. They're just so fun, and like
Yeah.
it's a good show. But what's it called? We actually, I think, had our first like non-binary
Mhm.
representative there, and a couple trans people too. So I was like,
Yes.
yes. But I think the main argument is that like, and this is more geared towards trans women in particular,
True.
because you don't hear people who are opposing trans people in sports talking about the trans men. They're like, eh. But the trans women, that's when they have a problem with it. And I'm like,
Right.
why? It's literally this. It's just you're just switching sides, you know. But
Right.
my opinion on it is that I think, I mean, trans people should play on the team that they represent. So if you're a trans woman and you want to play on the trans women, or not the trans women, on the women's team,
Yeah.
then you should be able to. And they have laws in place where you have to be on hormone therapy for at least a year for
Got it.
for professional sports,
Hmm.
not for anything lower than that. I don't believe there should be laws on anything lower than that, just because most of that is like young people, where those bodies are still growing. Those bodies are
Agreed.
still, and to
Developing.
be
Yeah.
worrying about that, like, sports is fun, yes, but it's not fun enough to start canceling people out of them based off of like whether they're
Right.
trans
Right.
or not. But back to like the professional sports, right? They have those laws in place. I believe in those laws. I do think those laws should be in place just for the fairness of it.
Got
And
it.
I feel like most trans people do agree with that. Because I mean, only we know how those hormones or what those hormones do to our bodies. And I think that's a lot of things people just skip over. They're
A
like,
hundred
oh,
percent.
she's only been on that for a year. She's only been on estrogen for a year. And I'm like, yeah, but do you know what it does in a year? Like, I don't know, like turns you
Yeah.
to a girl. Like, no, like I mean, yes, but like
Yeah.
it also like depletes your muscle mass so much. And
Really.
those trans women work hard to be at those levels just like any other woman. And this is another thing that I kind of bring up, not as kind of as an analogy, but this is also like a real thing too. Is like if we're gonna start taking or not letting people participate in sports because they're trans, like, or let's like trans women and stuff like that, I don't think that makes any sense, because for example, like African Americans, they have a higher muscle volume than like
Interesting.
Caucasians. I feel like a well-known fact. And stuff like that. So if you're gonna take out trans women because they might have a higher muscle volume, that doesn't make any sense. Because if you're gonna do that, why are you not doing that to black people? And you shouldn't. You should not. That is like,
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everybody works hard to get where they're at.
Right.
And like I said, unless you're a medical professional, like who knows and understands what hormones do to the body, or you're a trans person going through that, or you're like someone who is on hormone replacement therapy, because not all trans people are on it. There's a lot of cis people who have imbalances already. Um, you don't understand what those hormones do to you.
Right.
And
Right.
like for me, like even though I actually hit a year on testosterone today,
Did
which is
you?
yeah, very exciting. uh Very ironic.
Yeah, I
But
thought we were having this
I know,
conversation
I know.
today.
I was like, wow. But like even in the year, I've only been on it for a year. Even in the year that I've been on testosterone, literally like 4 months in, I could lift things I could not lift before. And I don't work out. Like I don't work out. I mean, I was just like at work and I could just like lift something with one hand. I was like, where did that come from? Like it was a little off-putting actually, but and it works exactly the reverse way for people who are on estrogen.
That's
And
crazy.
I just think it's sports.
Right.
Like yes, it's a serious thing. We take it seriously. People work hard for those medals. People work hard to be in that sport. So just let them participate because
Exactly.
you have these laws in place to protect the fairness of the game, as fair as you can be. And I think we should just leave it at that. If you want to extend it to 2 years, I guess, sure, fine. But if you're going to start nitpicking who can participate in what sports based off of stuff that we should already have covered by no like discrimination, which we
Hmm.
do, uh, you know, like I don't, that's just, it's dumb to me. I don't think yeah, we should just let people participate.
Right. Just let them have their fun. That's what
Yeah,
they're.
exactly.
Oh, I feel like we've covered a lot. Is there anything else that you want to share? Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
What made you want to do this? Like, I guess it's a study. Or
Yeah.
like, yeah.
So I'm doing my doctorate just like Miss Fanning is,
Yeah.
and we're taking an ethics class. And for me, this is a really important topic because prior to moving here to California, I was an middle school, well, intermediate school counselor in Houston,
Oh,
and
okay.
we had a couple of kids who were presented as trans, that whose families did not know, kind of like you were saying.
Mhm.
And I just felt like they needed to be loved on. And I didn't feel like we as adults on campus did a good job at it. And so when I got to California and I had my one student that I was telling you about, I wanted to make sure that I was doing everything right by them, just like I would have any other kid.
Yeah.
So my personal stance and professional stance on this is that my job is to advocate for all of them. And there is no reason that cisgender rights should impede the transgender rights, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? I want them to feel safe and loved on and supported. And I don't want to see those rates of suicide. And I don't want to see the rates of victimization that they have. I mean, I've read the name calling, even by staff, the pronouns, how important pronouns are, and like you were saying before, we do make mistakes. I might mistake her and say him, but I immediately correct. And I want to apologize for that because I want her to know that I really truly do support her.
Yeah.
So for me, it was important to put this out here. And what I decided to do rather than write a paper was to do an actual website, like a web page about to help other educators
Yeah,
that
that's cool.
want to support children, all children. So that was important to me. And this was an easy topic for me just because I knew that this was something that in education we don't talk about very well, especially in the elementary school, because they're minors and we just think, oh, well, they're little kids and they haven't kind of truly decided who they are yet.
Mhm.
But she really pushed me to see things through her eyes, and I appreciated that. And I wanted to do this as a way of showing her and other kids who are coming after her that I really truly do believe that they are just as lovable and just as important as every other kid that comes through my office. So to me, it was a kind of a personal thing.
That's beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
I think that's really important,
Yeah.
to have like, I mean, yes, having like trans advocates is amazing, but to have cisgender advocates is also really amazing because, I mean, you do hold that privilege of being able to advocate for a group that necessarily doesn't have the privilege to advocate for themselves,
Agreed.
and especially like you said in education, this is a subject that isn't really talked about because yes, they're minors and stuff like that, and like with laws and stuff, it's hard to tiptoe around it sometimes,
Mhm.
especially in Texas. But
Yeah.
uh, I think that's beautiful, and I think that's super important work that you're doing. And
Thank
like, I
you.
hope like even after this class, you don't stop because
I
this
will not.
like, I mean, this will never end, but this is gonna be a long fight, and
Right.
like, I think it's, I
And
think it's
as it
awesome.
should be, it needs to be acknowledged for what it is. Like you were saying before, we have this idea that this is a brand new group. It's a
Yeah,
brand new cultural group. They're just now because we see them on TV or whatever, but it's like, no, they have been important contributions, just like every other, like you were saying earlier, marginalized group. And I just hate that idea that we're not all the same in that sense. There should be equity in that sense, and
yeah,
I want to be somebody, a push agent for that equity because like you said, the platform's there, but it's scary because you will be attacked and you will be, ostracized. And I just don't want any of that. So I want to
yeah,
use the power to have to advocate for others to say, hey, no, this is not okay, you
yeah,
know, especially with parents. I think the parents are the hardest to change.
yeah.
So
That's for sure. Because, as a parent, I feel like you always like not want to believe, but want to believe that you know what's best for your child. And you know what? I feel like for the most part they do, but
yeah,
you also need to be open-minded,
yeah,
and like, you're there, like, you're raising a human being,
yeah.
and human beings need care and
Mhm.
reassurance, and even like small things that you do, might represent the opposite of that. And, you don't want that.
Right,
You don't
right.
want your kid to resent you, and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Like, even for me growing up, I remember in middle school, and this was like one of those like small multitude of things that made me not
yeah,
want to come out to my parents. I remember in middle school when I was like starting to discover myself, I was too scared to talk to my mom. I have a closer relationship with my mom than my dad, so usually I go to her for things.
yeah, yeah.
But I was too scared to talk to her in person, so I remember writing a little letter of like, "Hey, can you buy me more men's clothes? Like, I feel more comfortable in this." And I don't know what was going on with her that week, but she took the letter and like, she kind of like ripped it, and she just said, "Never asked me this." And it
Oh,
was very like a serious thing.
oh.
And I feel like that's something I should talk to about her soon. Talk to her about soon, because now she's like completely different. But I mean,
Right,
we're all
right.
completely different. We all grew. But
Yeah.
that was a not like traumatizing, but like that was a scarring
It
moment for me.
stuck
'Cause,
with you.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, it stuck with me for sure. Because like later down the road, when I was like, this is for sure what I want to do, I don't
yeah,
want to tell my mom.
yeah.
And I didn't know why, but like, thinking about it, I'm like, these are things that like happened that made me not feel safe with my
Exactly.
parent. Even as a 17 or 18-year-old, I didn't feel
Right,
safe, like, and it's stuff like that that I think parents should take into consideration. Like, really think before you speak, or
right,
think before you act. And it's okay to make mistakes.
right. And if
Par-
you make the
Parenting is
mistake to
something,
apologize, yeah,
right? And parenting something like I obviously have never like experienced, but so
yeah,
I don't know how hard it is. I'm sure it's very hard.
yes,
Kudos to parents, but
yeah,
like, I think it's just, yeah, the reassurance, the open mindedness.
yeah.
And yeah, like you said, parents are the hardest to change, but I think it's possible. And I think
I
the
agree.
more society like comes to terms with it and starts accepting people, the more representation we have, the more people are able to come out and live their free lives. I think it'll
Yes.
make parents less scared, like, oh, this is a real thing. Cool. It's like things take time. I mean,
Mhm.
we weren't always mixed together. We weren't always,
Yeah.
black and white and Mexican and everything in the same classroom. We weren't always like that.
True,
That
very
stuff
true.
didn't just happen overnight. That took years and years and
Yeah.
years and years of hard work and dedication and fighting for those rights. And it's not any different just because we have phones and social media. It's not any different,
Mhm.
you know. And the fact that we are still fighting for those things today, it's like we can't do anything about that other than fight,
Yeah, move forward.
move forward. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, James. I've learned so much, and I hope we can keep in touch. I really, really
Yes.
appreciate your journey. I want to hear about where you go beyond college and what you end up doing. And if you're going to move over here, I want to see you.
Oh, California's on the list.
Good to hear. Well, thank you so much. I won't take up any more time of your weekend. Go have fun.
That's okay.
I hope you're feeling better. Hope your dad's feeling better.
Yes.
And I'm sending all my love. Know that you have in me somebody who supports you and loves you and cares for you just by being you.
All right. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It
And
was really
then
great.
I appreciate it. It was great for me as well. I learned so much. And I know my classmates are going to learn so much from hearing you speak. And I will send it to you for your review before I post it. But I, if there's nothing else, I want to say so long for now. I don't want to say goodbye.
Yes. So long for now. See you later, alligator.
There you go. Take care of yourself. Have a great weekend.
Yes. Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.